Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to the episode titled Awakening of the Fairy Fountain Podcast. Today, we're going to be covering the Awakening section of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is everything from the playable prologue all the way up to the Great Sky Island, which is the first fully playable and explorable segment of the game. That includes all of the shrines and the quests up there that you can get in the beginning, and then it's going to end at where you land into the Hyrule Kingdom. So here we are, and we're going to begin, and I'm just going to jump right into it with a small side tangent. So I just rolled credits on this game. I think it was about a week or two ago at this point, and this game was fantastic, especially the ending. I thought it had like an incredibly cinematic and an incredibly engaging final battle, one of the best in the series, probably my favorite final boss fight in the series. It was very, very, very much like Link met his match. It was a great fight. I loved every bit of it there. And then I also am almost at the point where I think I'm going to consider the game complete for myself. So I did the final battle at about 180 hours. So I did take my time. A lot of people do it before then. And I did all of the shrines, all the light routes, got full map completion, all the Skyview towers. I just need a couple more armor pieces, and I'm not going to go for like completing the recipe book or anything like that, because that there's way too many like recipes that you can make multiple different ways, and I didn't want to spend time doing that. But there is one thing I'm definitely not going to do, which is find all 1,000 of the Korok seeds. I just can't do that. That is way too big of a task for me. They're so far spread out throughout Hyrule this time around, and I do find them fun, especially the ones where you gotta like reunite two of the Koroks that are separated, and you gotta get them back together for 2 Korok seeds. Those are fun. Those are unique. But I really do wish that they either did a little bit less Koroks this time or revamped them, but they're largely the same as they were in Breath of the Wild. So you find them, they give you a seed, you save up those seeds, and then you can use them to upgrade your inventory slots. Now, I'm probably going to stop as soon as I get as many Korok seeds as I'll need to complete all the inventory spaces, and right now I'm at like 140, so I still got a ways to go, but I don't think I'll find them all. I do commend them, though, for the way they implemented Koroks, because I think it's this type of thing where they put so many of them and spread them out so much that everyone can have their own experience with it. Like, the Koroks that I found on, say, like, I don't know, the Thunder Plateau could be entirely different to the Koroks someone else found, because they're so many and they're so well separated and they're very well hidden and very well designed for the most part. So I think it's like, it's to create discussion. Like, I can talk to my friend about how I found one in the Gerudo Highlands, and they found another one in the same area, but they were entirely different Koroks, and I think it is a very cool aspect there, but there's just too many of them. So I'm going to consider my file of the game content complete once I've got all the armor and stuff, but I'm almost there, and I think I'm definitely at a point now where I can start to form some opinions on the game. That being said, let's jump into that very beginning section of the game, which is like the playable prologue. So you've booted up your copy of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Years of anticipation is crawling over your back and whispering into your ear. You are ready to start this adventure. Once you boot up your copy, you're greeted by the Nintendo Presents The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom screen. And it's dark. It's a little bit spooky. You see a torch. Link and Zelda are venturing underneath Hyrule Castle together. Zelda has her torch in hand, and Link follows behind. This part, being playable, is one of my favorite decisions that Nintendo has made for this game. So we take control of Link, and we kind of follow behind Zelda as she like looks at these glyphs on the walls. And it's super cute because they're investigating something that is causing sickness. They're investigating something that is causing sickness to the people of Hyrule. And that is gloom. People are falling ill when they come into contact from this mysterious red substance that comes up from the ground. So Link and Zelda head down to the castle. They obviously have a purpose there, but Zelda kind of starts to nerd out at the old relics and the writing that she's able to see on the walls. And we take control of Link. And once you start to run and move around, you'll notice that Link has full stamina and full hearts. And I really like that attention to detail because it makes it feel like you're Link from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. All the time and effort you put into building him up, giving him more hearts, giving him his stamina back, recovering his memories, it feels like it paid off and it transferred into Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, it's not really like it looked at your save data. They just presume that you go into Tears of the Kingdom knowing that Link has been on this adventure in Breath of the Wild, but it really does feel good to start taking control of Link and to see that he has all of his hearts and his stamina. It just makes you feel more connected to the story already, and it makes you immersed into it. And I really like this section. Like, I saw some people saying that they thought Zelda was, like, walking around too slowly. I thought it was great. Like, I just followed behind her, checked out what she was looking at. I talked to her, like, 40 times because I wanted to see all the dialogue she had, because you never really get to explore with Zelda like that, and it's, like, a sweet moment. As you progress deeper, these voices, these, like, disembodied choral, like, chorus voices are singing in the background, and it's a little bit off-putting. It's a bit creepy. You've heard them in the trailers if you saw those for this game. And as you continue to get deeper and deeper down, the voices pick up. The next notable segment here is where Link's Master Sword starts glowing, and that means, of course, that there is danger nearby, something with malice and gloom. So it turns out to just be Keese for the time being. And Zelda's like, Link, are you okay? And of course he is. He just kind of swats the Keese away. And we look at the walls. And I loved this part of the game because Zelda begins to take pictures on the Purah pad, which is like the updated Sheikah slate that Purah made for Zelda. And down underneath the castle, which Zelda explains to us that her father said no one is ever to be down here. It is strictly forbidden. There's a depiction of an ancient battle called the Imprisoning War. And Zelda tells us this. It was a struggle between a king of Hyrule and his allies, which are known as sages. So we see this like big depiction of the struggle, a large carving of the Demon King where its eyes are like three-dimensional and it looks like they're following you. Super creepy, super cool. And then there's a section of this little doorway. Once you head down there, this is where things get real. As you walk closer, the music builds and builds and builds until it crescendos and it hits a head. When you're controlling Link, you're doing all this, which makes it super immersive. So for me, as I'm walking down this hallway, I look in the next room. I get a glimpse of Ganondorf's corpse that we've been seeing for years in the trailers, and I'm super stoked. Like, I'm excited to go and see him. But the atmosphere kind of gets to me. I'm a bit, not scared, but I'm a bit frightened. And walking closer and closer and knowing what's going to happen kind of made the anticipation of this moment all the better. Eventually, it does kick into cutscene. And, we see the mummified corpse arched back with the hand in its chest, sealing it there. And you get close enough, and eventually the hand pops off, and the little gem that was on top of the hand crumbles down and lands near Zelda's feet. So Zelda picks it up, and it kind of resonates with her. We see it have a little golden glow, and she doesn't really have enough time to check it out, because then the mummy corpse starts to reanimate. This moment gave me chills. It was late at night when I was playing this game on release day, May 12th, and I was with my fiance. We were having a date that night, so when she was asleep, I decided to boot up the game, and because I could hardly wait. I had my AirPods in, so I'm fully immersed into this, and Ganondorf speaks, and we hear him in that raspy voice, and he says, Zelda, and you must be Link, the one who carries the sword that seals the darkness. And Zelda says, how do you know our names? And I'm thinking the same thing. How does he know their names? This Ganondorf hasn't met them yet, has he? And after that, he launches like this devastating attack towards Link's arm, and Link attempts to deflect it with the Master Sword, but the sword is like decimated. It shatters, and all that lands on Ganondorf is a tiny, tiny scrap fragment of the Master Sword, and it like scrapes against Ganondorf's cheek. And it does leave a wound, like we can hear it bubble, we can see that it had some sort of an effect, even if it was a small one. But it just makes you feel like he really is powerful this time. I mean, that sword's been through a lot. The Master Sword is the legendary sword, and it just crumbles like that. After this, the moment we've seen in all the trailers and the promotional art takes place, Zelda is falling towards the ground because in a last-ditch effort right now, Ganondorf shoots a spiral of gloom and malice into the top of this little ceiling room that they're in, which turns out to be directly underneath Hyrule Castle. That sends the castle into the sky, and it causes the ground to erode around them. Link like buckles down in pain. He can't move very well. His arm is totally like burned and just eaten away at by the gloom. Zelda falls. Ganondorf just arches himself all the way down, and he ends up falling too. But we get a glimpse of this. Zelda and the stone she resonated with sort of get engulfed in this ball of light. So we don't see Zelda hit the ground. She's somewhere. We don't know where yet. If this was your first time playing the game or your first time seeing this cutscene, you might think she's dead. Like, you have no idea what happened to her. I mean, obviously, nobody wants to go ahead and presume that they would kill off Zelda like that, but you never know. I mean, this was a mysterious moment. Link failed to catch her on their way down because his hand was out of commission. After that, the green hand that fell to the floor fuses to Link's. Here's where I want to point out something interesting. So, in the trailers leading up to the release of this game, all the way back to 2019, and I believe even in the 2021 trailer, the depiction, like the timeline of events in this opening sequence is way different. Actually, if you guys have the amiibo, and I'm looking back at mine now, the amiibo pose that we see Link in for the Tears of the Kingdom game doesn't take place. Like that moment doesn't exist in the game or in any cutscene. You don't see it later on in the game. You don't see it in this beginning sequence. It has Link doing like sort of an attack motion where his right hand is extended out, the green magic hand. His left hand is sort of holding it in place, and his right sleeve is damaged from the gloom attack. That doesn't take place in this sequence, and we saw that in the original 2019 trailer. The thumbnail for that on YouTube is Link's hand being fused with the green hand, which we later find out who that belongs to. I'll touch on that in a minute. It's just interesting to see how that changed. So it looks like originally, instead of Link and Zelda being separated like that, and Ganondorf and Zelda both falling and Link being pulled up, there probably would have been an altercation between Link and Ganondorf, and we would have seen the hand fuse to Link. But I do like the way they made it play out here. It was very quick, but I think it does the job. It sets you up with this mystery. Where's Zelda? Who is Ganondorf now? How does he know our names? Why is he so cool? Like, in this moment, he's kind of badass, because you hear that raspy voice and you're like, all right, Link has kind of met his match this time. And that is proven later on towards the end of the game. But that brings us to the next segment, which is the Great Sky Island. So Link is pulled upwards by the green hand, and when he awakens, he's in this strange, dark, dim room. It's kind of got like dust and green particles all around. And he's guided by this voice, and he's like, so you're finally awake. He explains that he had to do the best he could to save Link's hand. He says it was too far gone. So basically this voice provided Link with its own hand. And Link gets up, walks around. We find out he's in a place called the Room of Awakening, which is kind of part of why I titled this episode the way I did. And Link notices the Master Sword. He picks it up. It's still decayed. It's about half the size it usually is, and it's eaten away at by the gloom. But Link picks it up, takes the sword with him, and he walks out, jumps off of a little ledge because he's fairly high up, and he has to skydive down from a tiny little island down to the bigger one, and he lands in the water, and we get the title sequence, and we get that main theme, and it is incredible, a very cool moment. I think I like this title screen sequence a little bit more than Breath of the Wild because it's more dynamic, and I love the lighting and the yellow colors in the Sky Islands. Breath of the Wild's moment like that is the one you see a lot of people try to recreate in their games, where after Link wakes up from the Shrine of Resurrection, he walks out and gets the view of Hyrule at the edge of the cliff outside of the Shrine of Awakening. Shrine of Resurrection. These two got me confused, but you know what I mean. So they're very similar, but the main difference here is Tears of the Kingdoms has Link skydiving down to this beautiful golden land in the sky, and that's why I like it more. Once Link hits the water, we are presented with the playable open tutorial of this game. So Tears of the Kingdom's Great Sky Island is what the Great Plateau was to Breath of the Wild. So this is a very, very large island in the sky. Link is here, and he is going to discover his new abilities, and he's going to find out a little bit more about what's going on. Once Link lands, he finds a construct. A construct is an ancient Zonai robot, and in the beginning sequence of the game, when Link and Zelda are under the castle, Zelda finds a statue of a tall, large-eared man, and she says that this is what the Zonai looked like. So the Zonai had something to do with Hyrule's founding, and she knows that. We see a construct, which is a creation of the Zonai. It's very polite. This is a stored construct, and it delivers Link Zelda's Puripad. How is the Puripad here? We don't know, but we take it, and this gives us access to the map screen and the scope feature. And this polite stored construct, it tells us that Zelda was last seen in the Temple of Time. This Temple of Time is not like the one on the surface of Hyrule. This one is in the sky, and it's shaped like a pyramid that's upside down. It's very big. It's a very cool building. One of my favorite things about being on the Great Sky Island is that, you're exploring the nature, you're in the sky, you're surrounded by this golden grass, these golden trees, and you hear these beautiful calming bells coming from the Temple of Time on the Sky Island. It's just a beautiful, serene moment. But Link heads there, and he's not able to open the door. A grid shows up on the door with 4 divided symbols. That's where we hear from the voice again. This time, we get to see a ghostly apparition. This is Rauru. Rauru is a really cool character. He has a great design in this game. You may recognize that name from Ocarina of Time. Rauru is the Sage of Light in Ocarina of Time, and in this game, we find out that Rauru is the founding king of Hyrule. He and his wife Sonia founded Hyrule Kingdom. That comes into play later with Zelda's storyline. We'll touch on that in another episode, but here, Rauru introduces himself, and he explains that there may be a way for Link to restore enough power to his arm in order for him to be able to open that door, which is to get to the shrines. So yes, shrines are back in this game. I find that this time around, the shrines are a lot more enjoyable. I did like them in Breath of the Wild, but the shrines in Tears of the Kingdom are more aesthetically pleasing. They have better music, and they have more consistently good puzzles. There are still blessing shrines that feel a little out of place because you don't have to do anything in them. You just walk in and get a reward and a light of blessing, which is the equivalent to a spirit orb. But I do think that this time around the puzzles are better where there are some, because I don't think it's recency bias. I think that on the whole they're more well designed, which is great. They must have learned something from Breath of the Wild, and they were able to improve here. But anyways, Rauru teaches us to seek out these shrines. The first shrine that we're going to make our way to is the Ultra Hand Shrine. This Ultra Hand ability is one of the most important ones in the game, especially in the earlier on parts. So we go to the shrine, and we are given an ability by Rauru. It's absorbed into Link's green magic hand. The Ultra Hand ability is magnesis on steroids. It allows us to pick up anything. It doesn't have to be metallic. Any object that is interactable can be interacted with. You can attach things together and basically build your own creations with this ability. So this shrine, I thought this shrine was fairly easy. There was nothing I really struggled with here. It was mostly just bridge building. I think the hardest thing about it is learning to control Ultra Hand. I think the one thing Tears of the Kingdom struggles with is its abilities are a lot more nuanced and complicated to use. I got the hang of them pretty quick, but my younger brothers, I got them a copy of this game. I had this pre-ordered for years, and then I got the collector's edition, and I gave them my copy I had pre-ordered from before. They love this game, but it's really hard for them to use abilities like Ultra Hand. It's hard for them to understand how to rotate objects, how to attach them. For me, after a couple minutes, I was able to put it together, and it kind of becomes like second nature. Rotating objects, using the D-pad, it gets ingrained in your head after a while. It's not super easy, but it's not hard either. This shrine, you build bridges, you get to the end, you get your shrine, or you get your Light of Blessing, and you are one Light of Blessing away from getting another heart. After that, you need to use your newfound Ultra Hand ability to build these like cable car type things with hooks and planks. After doing that, you're able to take a ride down to the Fuse Shrine. And this is a really cool moment. I love the atmosphere of the Great Sky Island. It's like you can tell it's an ancient place. Everything is old. The wood there is old. The shields there are old. The constructs are attacking you. But if you talk to Rauru, another thing I love about this Great Sky Island segment is Rauru will be floating around there, like his ghost apparition is floating, and you can talk to him, and he'll give you little tidbits of information. He explains that the constructs are only doing their job of protecting this Garden of Time, which is like the official name of this place, from intruders. They don't know who Link is, so they see him as a threat. Even years and years later, they're still doing their job. He also talks about how he loves the view of the Temple of Time from certain areas, and he loves the sound of the bell. It makes you feel close to him. It's a very sweet interaction. But once we make our way down to the next shrine, we are introduced to our next ability, which is Fuse. This ability is probably my second favorite. It's very cool. This is their solution to weapon durability and weapon breaking. So all of the weapons in Tears of the Kingdom are gloom weapons. They're like eaten away at by the gloom. So they're like eroded. They're not as strong as they were in Breath of the Wild. And they break a lot easier. And in order to combat that, you can fuse either monster parts or materials like rocks and such to these weapons to make them stronger and more durable. You can get pretty creative with it, and I know that the Great Sky Island gives you everything you need to like fuse gusters, which are like you fuse a board to a sword. You can create gusts of wind, which will like propel enemies away from you. And you can also attach like mushrooms to a stick, and that'll make a bouncy weapon. So if you attack an enemy with it, they'll be sent flying. You can get very creative with it, and you can also get practical. So like a rock on a sword is going to make a blunt weapon that's great at breaking things, and it's a lot more durable. The Fuse Shrine is basically about that. Like you're going to want to create hammers. My younger brothers did great with this one. They loved destroying the little towers there and there to get to the next goal. As did I. Excellent tutorial shrine. So after that, you are 2 Light of Blessings away from another heart container. The next place we need to go is to the Ascend Shrine. Now, in order to get there, we need to make use of our new abilities. There's a little area where there are some constructs by the water, and they have some fans, and they'll like tell you that, please don't use those fans. We need them. You can use the ones over there. There's like a little outpost where you can use wooden planks and fans to build a boat with Ultra Hand, and it's really cool because you learn that you get this like battery hip device. It almost looks like some sort of a flute. Over time, throughout the course of this game, Link gets more and more batteries he can put on there. So you can use Zonai devices. So things like fans are Zonai devices, and you can provide power to them. So Link is able to power a boat across this little section of water to get to the other side with the battery. That's a great introduction. And then when we get there, this is a cold area. So we need to find some way to combat the cold. There are warm greaves, which are like warm pants in this area, somewhere around there. I can't quite remember where. They're in a chest in one of these little Sky Island Challenge segments. If you wear those, you'll be protected from the cold. But there's also fire fruit around, and if you cook those, Link will get cold resistance. But you can also head into a nearby cave, which is just on the other side of that little body of water that we just crossed. This is our introduction to caves in this game. Caves are one of my favorite part about this new iteration of Hyrule and Tears of the Kingdom because they feel so natural. Your sense of exploration is all there. You just want to go in, get all of the materials you can find all the treasure, fight all the monsters. This is what they sought to do with the Legend of Zelda series. All the way back from the beginning, Zelda was meant to capture a sense of adventure. What is more adventurous than exploring and spelunking in caves? But I digress. So we can go in the cave. Caves are warmer than the outside because they have their like natural heat absorbency powers and condensation and all of that. So they're a lot warmer in there than they are outside. It's not all frozen. So that was my scientific explanation of why caves are warmer than the outside world. Somewhere in there might be some truth, but Link can stay in there to stay warm. He finds a steward construct with a cooking pot. You can use that to create more cold resistance recipes with fire fruits if you need to. And once you head through that cave, you will find Bright Bloom Seeds. Bright Bloom Seeds are an important item in this game. They introduce you, well, at least for me they did. There are a couple tutorial shrines, I think on the surface, which you get to later on in the game that will teach you this. But you can throw items now. Not just weapons like in Breath of the Wild, but you can throw materials. So you can throw Bright Bloom Seeds, you can throw fire fruit, you can throw anything in this game. So if you have Link throw a Bright Bloom Seed out, it's going to land and burst into this little flower that gives off light. And now Link is able to see and he's able to navigate further through the cave. Once he's doing that, I mean, you can head all the way up through, gather some materials, and you are one step closer to the next shrine. Eventually, once you're up top there, you make it to the Ascend Shrine. This ability I thought was going to be boring when I saw it in the trailers. Ascend allows Link to sort of like morph through terrain. He can just kind of no-clip through terrain. It started off as a dev tool and they decided to add it, and I'm glad they did because it makes exploration so much easier. The cave we just went through is a great tutorial and it's an excellent design choice on them. The Great Sky Island is very well designed, but after you get your Ascend ability, you can just rise through the ground. Anywhere there's this like green circle, you can ascend through it. If it's red, you can't. You just keep moving around until you find a place you can go up through. So certain walls you can do it on as long as there's a ledge to land on up top, and you can do it through caves. That way you don't have to go all the way through. That makes climbing a lot easier and it makes it way faster. Ascend is a really helpful ability, and I think as you progress through the game, you use it more and more often. I kind of don't know how they would do another Zelda game in this open air style like Breath of the Wild and Tears without Ascend. Ascend is a great ability. But now that we've got that, we are three lights of blessing closer to a heart piece. But now that we have our 3 shrines, for some reason, of course there's a 4th, they don't tell it to you. You gotta go all the way back to the Temple of Time, meet with Rauru again, and we still can't open the door. Rauru tells you that there is one more shrine on this island. And I actually believe I may be remembering this out of order. I think with the 3, you can go in. And once you're in there, there's another door behind that first door, and it's locked. You need essentially more vitality to get through. But something very important to the story happens. Rauru tells you that Zelda is waiting inside the Temple of Time. You open the door, and there's like a ghostly apparition of Zelda in there. So we walk up closer to it, and Zelda, in this like ghostly form, extends out her hand. Link grabs it. Super cute, super sweet moment. It's very clear that something is off here, though. And Zelda transfers this ability to Link called Recall. Recall is my favorite ability in this game. It's so cool, but you get this from Zelda, and the room inside the Temple of Time is surrounded by these moving gears. Link can use Recall on these gears to reverse their trajectory, and instead of moving clockwise or counterclockwise, he can change their direction. This allows him to get a gear that's moving towards him to go the opposite way, which basically lifts him up to the next door. This is the door that tests your vitality. Link doesn't have enough. Rauru tells him that there is one more shrine he can complete on this island, and that will allow him to get a heart piece from a goddess statue, which is also in the Temple of Time. So we kind of need to do a little bit of backtracking here. A lot of people don't like this about the Great Sky Island. It's a strange design choice, and I think it would confuse some players, but on the whole, I like the Great Sky Island better than Breath of the Wild's Great Plateau. The Great Plateau would probably take you about 2 hours-ish to complete. The Great Sky Island is going to take you closer to 3 or 4. For me, it probably took 6 or 7. I tried to explore everything, and I tried to battle every enemy there was. But that being said, we do need to do a little bit of backtracking. So we head all the way back up to the Room of Awakening. We can use fast travel, and now with a combination of Ascend and Recall, Link can make his way up to the last shrine, which is at a really high point on the Great Sky Island. This is the ability to rewind. That's the name of the shrine. And Link uses Recall to reverse the flow of these rafts. And he keeps doing that. He keeps reversing the flow of things that are coming at him. He can jump on, reverse the flow, and ride all the way back to the next safety platform. That's the basis of the shrine. Recall is crazy good. If you were to throw a weapon off of a ledge, you could recall it right back up to you. Or if you were exploring in some sort of a vehicle that you built with Ultra Hand and it accidentally flies off the ledge, just recall it and it's right back there. Or if an enemy shoots a rock at you, you can recall that too and it goes ricocheting back to them. This ability is so fun. It's incredibly well designed. Every object essentially has memory to it, and the game remembers its exact path. Super cool, super creative. Once you complete this shrine, you get your last Light of Blessing. Then you can go back to the Temple of Time, meet up with Rauru one more time. Great character. I love him. You already at this point start to know him super well. And then you can open that Vitality door. 4 hearts is just enough for Link to open the door. Then there's this like long, narrow landing strip looking thing at the back side of the Temple of Time. Rauru will then explain to you that he doesn't quite know what that was that Link saw of Zelda. He's not sure if that was the real Zelda or if it was a ghost or what it was. But he does explain that he's heard a lot about Link from Zelda and that he's done everything he can for her and the rest is up to you. And that puts a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, but it also invigorates you to learn more. So Rauru trusts Zelda's safety to you, and he says that he's very happy to meet Link, and he's just every bit as trustworthy and kind as Zelda explained he was. And that's really sweet, and Rauru kind of fades away for the time being, and Link continues forward. Towards the end of this landing strip section, there is a rounded, like sort of rounded ceremonial-esque slab of stone. There appears a glowing ball in front of Link. It's very similar to the glowing ball of light that absorbed Zelda when she fell underneath Hyrule Castle in that playable prologue. So Link takes the Master Sword, and this moment is really cool. This is where you kind of start to figure out what's going on, and it just makes you even more intrigued. I loved this. Link hears the voice of Fi, the spirit of the Master Sword that we see in Skyward Sword, and we hear her little chime, and the sword is resonating with this glowing ball of light. Link pulls the sword out and puts it inside of this ball of light. And we hear the recall sound effect, and it goes through this like circular motion, and it's almost as if the sword is being rewound in time. Well, then we cut to a different scene, and Zelda is in a much more blue and green looking place, as opposed to Link's yellowy, grassy, Sky Island, we see that Zelda is on the surface somewhere with a blue sky and green trees, so she's on the surface. The sword falls into her hands, and Zelda is very far away from Link. It was at this moment that I figured there's some time travel stuff going on, and I thought this was very cool. I know some people don't like time travel, but I think they did it well here, and especially this early on. You're not really sure of the implications yet. You just know something cool is afoot, and it makes you want to find her even more. Cutting back to Link, there's only one thing left for him to do. Link is able to ricochet down to the surface of Hyrule. He just bullets down there. He jumps off this final landing strip pillar of the Temple of Time, and he goes bulleting down to the surface of Hyrule. Hyrule's hero descends from the skies, and after a scary absence, they have a little bit less to fear. One more thing I want to touch on before Link touches down to the surface of Hyrule is my experience with the Great Sky Island. So like I said, I think I like it better than the Great Plateau. The main reason for that is the general vibe and atmosphere. I love the Great Plateau. It does a great job of introducing you to Magnesis, Cryonis, Stasis, and the remote bomb runes. It does a good job of that. But I think it's a little bit plain for me, and maybe it's just because I played it so many times over the years. But it's just it does its job very well. It's a beautiful place, very memorable, but I think it has less weight than Tears of the Kingdom's Great Sky Island, because you're there, you know Zelda's been there, or you meet this guy named Rauru, and you connect with him a lot more than you do the King Boss Ramus from the Great Plateau in Breath of the Wild, because the king only reveals himself very briefly, and it is sad, but Rauru explaining how Link is every bit as kind as Zelda explained him to be kind of breaks your heart a little bit. You know that there's a connection there, and you just feel more invigorated to continue with the story. The Great Sky Island is, I think it's technically a little smaller, but it definitely feels bigger when you're playing it as compared to the Great Plateau, because it's a lot more vertical. There's a section where you get to experiment with the wing Zonai devices, and this is really cool. The wing Zonai devices are up at the tippity top of the Great Sky Island, and there's a little rail strip that you can put the wings in, and it'll automatically start to run them off so you can glide down towards the Temple of Time. I think I did this 4 times. I basically used this spot where you could send the wings off the rails to glide down as just sort of a reference point. I kept returning back there. I would ride a wing down to various little spots on the island, and I found a little pond that was floating in the sky. I found some treasure chests. I took my time here because I was having so much fun. I couldn't believe that I was flying like this on a wing device in a Zelda game. It was so much fun, and it took me forever to actually take the wing back to the Temple of Time to get recall and everything, and to make it down to the surface. It was just so much fun doing that. I also wanted to make sure I battled all the enemies, so the constructs here are pretty cool. Constructs are sort of like bokoblins. They're about the equivalent of that. They're just cute and quirky, and they make little pottery sounds when you defeat them, and they have these big old red eyes, and they're just cute. They're robots. They're doing their job to protect the land. It kind of sucks that Link has to defeat them, but upon defeating them, they drop Zonai charges, which can be used to increase Link's battery if you're using a Zonai device, or you can use them at Zonai device dispensers later on in the game. They also drop construct horns, which I think for the Great Sky Island are going to be some of the strongest fusion parts you can get. So if you fuse a construct horn to a rusty sword, it looks a lot cooler. It looks a lot deadlier. The other thing that is on the Great Sky Island, I made sure I did while I was on the Great Sky Island, and it was one of the most fun fights. I genuinely think these boss fights are a great representation of Tears of the Kingdom as a whole. These are those giant constructs. What are their names? Why am I blanking on their names? Those giant constructs that are basically giant block pieces. Oh, it's going to bug me. I know their name. They're just those giant square Zonai constructs, and essentially they kind of like reshape themselves around you, and their phases of this battle are so fun. You can use Ultra Hand to pull these giant robots apart. You can pull their blocks out. There's one specific block that has their weak point. If you're able to find that, you can just pull it out with Ultra Hand, wail on it with a melee weapon. One of its other phases is it kind of turns into like a UFO, and it shoots out blocks, and you can recall these blocks to be lifted all the way into the air and on top of this battle construct while it's in its UFO form. They make such good use of all your abilities in this fight, and they're fun, and the battle music is great, and I need to go find their names. I need to see what these are called. Flux constructs. They're called flux constructs. I don't know why my mind blanked on that, but these flux constructs are called that because their form fluctuates so much through the battle, which allows you to make use of all of your abilities, like I said before. This battle is so much fun. I love these. I never was too afraid of them. I actually kind of ran to them whenever I saw one because I found the battles to be so engaging and fun, and once you defeat them, you get these flux cores, and they're like these rotating, spinning, gear-looking weapon parts. And you can't pick them up. They're not like a material, but you can fuse them. So you can get a really strong weapon here. The soldier construct horns and the flux core are definitely the strongest things you can get on the Great Sky Island. On top of that, there's these goofy-looking little ostrich creature things that are running around up top on the Great Sky Island. I don't really know what their actual name is, but you can hunt those for me and cook some meals, and they're really goofy and they're really cute. Those are some of the wildlife that you'll see there. Birds, you can find geese, and those little ostrich things. So they're pretty cute. The wildlife and fauna here are great. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anything because the Great Sky Island, one of the things that I will say it does poorly is being the biggest and best Sky Island in the game, and it being the first one you experience sort of sets it up so that you'll think that every Sky Island is going to be this big and expansive. And I definitely had that impression. So this is the biggest Sky Island in the game by far. None of the other Sky Islands are even a quarter as big. They're very, very small, and they're more small, fragmented puzzles as you advance through the game. So it says a lot about a location in a Zelda game if one of the worst things it does is set your expectations too high because it's so good. But yeah, I definitely thought that I would be exploring a lot more of Sky Islands that were the same size as the Great Sky Island, but this is the biggest one you're going to find. It doesn't mean that the other Sky Islands are bad. It just means that they're not as expansive as we might have hoped, especially with the sky being such like a prominent part of the trailers. But other than that, fantastic place, fantastic music, beautiful scenery, day and night. Raru's there to guide you. Raru is there to make you feel connected to the story. You see the Ghost of Zelda. You get these super great abilities. And to cap it all off, Link makes the coolest entrance to Hyrule by jumping down and diving. He lands in the water, and as soon as you take Link out of the water, you get this overlay on your screen, and it says Hyrule Kingdom. And it's like your boy is back in town, and you are ready to do what you need to do to help these people out. Before I end this episode on the Awakening, there's one more thing I'll touch on here. Basically, the first thing I did when I got to the surface of Hyrule is find one of those Hudson construction outposts with materials like wooden wheels, wooden planks, and I built a really rough vehicle, and I was determined to take a vehicle like this that I built by myself to the location that is marked on our map, because like Link gets a location marked on his map. Like it essentially, Zelda points him there. You hear a voice and it says, "Link, come find me," and it points to a place called Lookout Landing, which we will talk about in the episode titled The Surface, which will come a couple weeks down the line. But I wanted to go there in style, so I built this wooden-wheeled, giant, 2-story wooden plank car with a fan as its sole source of power, and I didn't have a control stick at this moment, so there was no way for me to control it, and it just kept like falling over on its side. But it was so much fun, and I have a picture of that car still, and it's one of my favorite memories about this game. Just that leaving the Great Sky Island filled me with so much creative energy. I immediately wanted to let some of that out and build something instead of just advancing the story. So that says a lot about your game when your mechanics are this good. And then, yeah, I mean, that about covers it here for the Awakening section of the game. We had that great playable sequence where Link and Zelda ventured down underneath Hyrule Castle. Super great to see Ganondorf again. He has great voice acting. Matt Mercer killed it as Ganondorf in this game. It was wonderful to be with Zelda in the beginning part of the game because that doesn't happen a lot. Rauru is a wonderful character. I know I'm saying that a lot, but he really is great. And, I mean, this really just sets you up for success. The Awakening section of this game is a joy to play through, and I can't wait to do it again. I think that's going to do it for this episode, guys. This is episode 1, and I'm probably going to do about 7 of these for Tears of the Kingdom. So if you liked what you saw here and you want to discuss the rest of the game with me, you should follow my channel. You can subscribe here on YouTube. You can listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, or you can find it on Spotify. You can see my socials down below if you want to keep up to date with me there. And I would like for you guys to comment down below. What was your impression of the Great Sky Island? What did you think about it? Did you enjoy it as much as I did? And would you prefer to be on the Great Plateau or the Great Sky Island? Thank you guys for sticking with me. The next episode we do in this Tears of the Kingdom series will detail the surface. I've been Caden, and this is Fairy Fountain Podcast.